The concept of karma is arguably the least helpful thing that could possibly have come into our spiritual worldview in the Western world in the last 50 years, because it's encouraged us to not look at what we're creating in the now for ourselves, and to palm blame off onto the past and things that have happened in the past, sometimes even to interactions with other people. I would strongly suggest the most useful thing you can all do in all of your lives is bin that idea completely and just take complete responsibility in the moment. Bad or good at all. None of this is ever about being bad or good. There is no such words as bad or good when you're looking at it from this sort of spiritual perspective. There is only experience. But what there is a lot, for all of us, there is a lot of unconscious or subconscious beliefs and ways of thinking that are completely ingrained within us. Most of the time we're not even aware of it at all. And that's the kind of stuff that, because we are creating our own reality all the time, that's the kind of stuff that will create less than ideal circumstances for us until we wake up to it. And I've been just as much, I'm not going to say the word victim, although I have had a victim mentality in the past, and it took me ages to spot that as well. You know, so we have to work hard on this and be very vigilant. And when you hear somebody like Eckhart Tolle talking about the power of now and being very present in the now, a big part of that is being aware of what your thought processes are, what your beliefs are. Just before Christmas, and I couldn't run away, another thing I just couldn't run away from, because there were things that I'd kind of understood but not properly. And I think I can say this pretty safely, 8 out of the 10 major channeled sources of the last 50 years, I would suggest, are all saying that this shift is about understanding just how powerful we are as creator gods and taking that responsibility. And one of the things that they say very specifically is, and again this is not new, but you have to understand the implications of it, time is not continuous. Time is a discrete series of now moments that are ever changing, and I've written about that extensively in Super Soul as well, and put diagrammatic models together. But even in Super Soul I didn't understand the full implications of it. The implications are that we are creating ourselves afresh in every moment of now. And therefore the past has absolutely no bearing on us whatsoever unless we choose to let it. And if that's correct, which I'm absolutely sure it is, that means ideas like karma are completely irrelevant unless we choose to believe in them. And of course, if we do believe in them, then we will create it for ourselves. That's exactly how it will work. But you can rid yourself of everything from the past in the present moment if you believe and indeed even know that strongly enough. Now, these are relatively radical ideas for some people. They were for me up until fairly recently. So, you know, it needs time to take them on board. But it's probably worth flagging up that it's possible to come across a single out-of-body pioneer who talks about the idea of soul groups. In Interlife research, I've been writing about soul groups for years, and not a single out-of-body pioneer mentions that concept at all. Not because they've overlooked it, they're just not coming across it. So this is another thing that, you know, probably needs to be thrown back into the melting pot and reconsidered. We do. And this is the other interesting thing, just briefly, is that where I've come from in the regression community, we always assume that after you die, you somehow re-merge with your higher self or your soul consciousness and you become very wise again. I mean, I've had people describe that to me when I've been doing between life regressions with them. But do you know what? When you read the outer body and the channeled material, it doesn't support that view at all. It suggests that we continue to be identified with the life personality that we've just left. And most of us carry on identifying with whatever that life personality was. We don't merge into some broader consciousness, and most people get trapped in what Robert Monroe would call belief system territories, or what my friend Todd would call a consensus reality, And these are things like Christian heaven, for example. There are thousands of Christian heavens out there in these other realms. And all of these departed souls are living in them perfectly happy, thinking that they have reached the nirvana that they dreamed of. They're in a very limited illusion. Just like to some extent we're in at something of an illusion here, although I think we have to be careful with that word. So it's the other thing to be aware of is when we pass on, the most important thing to do is to take with us the knowledge not to be limited to that life personality, and the knowledge that we should be striving to move our consciousness ever onwards to have some connection with our supersoul consciousness again, rather than get trapped in these belief systems after death. We're getting involved in any number of different realities, similar parallel realities that, I mean, out-of-body explorers describe going to other realities which appear perfectly physical. They seem rather like Earth in terms of atmosphere and physical humans, but something will be remarkably different about them. Monroe describes a reality where their locomotion, their trains and their cars, for example, are just very different, and they haven't developed electricity, for example. So, you know, there are myriad different realities going on, and Supersoul projects aspects of itself into all of these different realities at the same time. Strip it all away and just say, I am all-powerful right now. Now, look, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, I mean, I've had to do work on myself loads, you know, although I think if I'd understood what I understand now, I probably could have got rid of a load of that work and just said, you know what, forget that. I'm just going to be different now. And indeed, that's what I've been doing, I would say, in the last few months on a number of different issues. I've just recognised a limiting belief, as we would call it, for what it is, and just said, do you know what, I no longer have that belief. I have this belief instead. And there's lots of different therapeutic or other ways in lots of different books that describe to you how to really entrench or anchor those new beliefs. But it can be just as simple as saying, this is not who I am now. In this new moment, I've changed. And if you know that, not even just believe it, if you know it, bang, you're away. So your words were exactly right. Supersoul level of consciousness created it all, and therefore, sorry, what was the last bit of the...
That means we're in control of
Absolutely. Never... Again, I'm afraid this is something that I shouldn't get emotional about, because I'm completely balanced as a spiritual human being. But if I hear people talking about the fact that the human race is not in charge of its own destiny because some race of extraterrestrials from Nibiru or Planet X or whatever genetically created us and they're ready to come down and manipulate us at any time, I find that more of a challenge than any other message. And the reason I find that a challenge is because, I mean, there's lots of things I don't agree with, but with this one in particular, it's suggesting to people that they are not in control, either individually or the human race collectively. And I find that incredibly unhelpful and not constructive to the new consciousness that we're all trying to move into. You have had, or you are having, more than one life, but you know, and I don't wish to be well, arrogant or whatever about this, but you know, if you want an answer to, I mean, that was a beautiful thing to say to you. Remember who you are, and please try and remember what I said earlier. The best answer to that is you are a completely unlimited creative being, and you are not at the mercy of anything. And they were physical. She said physical. Projection. They were projecting it, or they appeared to be. Yeah. Look, the honest answer to that is I'm not in a position to comment on it. I mean, but that's okay. But the idea that there are other ones of you that are potentially very similar, even identical, is completely okay within these kind of models.
But I also understand where you're coming from, where you can be totally different.
Yes, absolutely. Look, the best thing you can do is not put any limits on any of this. If at any time anybody is trying to put any sort of limits on any of this stuff, I would suggest that raises alarm bells for you. Because basically, as super souls, we are creating these realities. It is literally like a computer game. And we are creating, as super soul consciousness, we're creating these computer games, and then we're sending probes in to play in them. And I know that's very difficult for us to accept sometimes when we're going through a really difficult time, because that's how easy it is to get sucked into this game and take it incredibly seriously and feel the pain terribly. And trust me, I've done it as well. We've all done it. But the reality behind all this is almost certainly, I don't know if you've come across Thomas Campbell's work, My Big Toe, or Theory of Everything. He's a physicist who says that the whole world is a digital, not just the world, all of the different universes are all digital. And they're like computer simulations. And we are playing in these computer simulations. But we've completely forgotten that we created them and that we're in them. This is not like when I use the term matrix for some of these models of soul consciousness, it's not like the film The Matrix, where we are the puppets or the pawns of artificial intelligence. This is all about, this is our creation. We're doing this perfectly willingly, although we forget sometimes who we are. But I'm still saying in different eras. Does that make sense? So we can be in any era. When I say they're happening at the same time.
It doesn't make sense to me, because say you have a lifespan of about 70 years
Yeah.
or 80 years.
Yes.
And you're having all these lives all at the same time in different eras.
Yes.
What happens when you've had your lifespan all at the same time and then it's over?
Well, your individual consciousness will carry on.
So
And
you,
this
don't have, you have no more lives after that?
If the lives are all happening at the same time, you are having them all. That is it. You're having them all at the same time.
So
There is no.
You just have 80 years and that's it?
No.
All these different lives at the same
Effectively,
time?
what I'm saying is, I could be a Viking pirate right now. I could be a Roman senator right now. I could be a pauper in a French court right now in the medieval times. I could be a Stone Age man right now, and that's true of all of us. So there is no question that there is no such thing as before and after. They're just all happening right now, and there's no question of how long each life takes. Or anything. None of that means anything anymore.
What about reincarnation then?
Well, we are having multiple, potentially under that model, we're having multiple lives, but they're not one after the other. That's the whole point of it. It's a very different way of looking at it.
Because that means you just have a certain span on the earth at different
There aren't.
times.
Please don't get the idea there are any limits to any of this. All of this is completely
you're not gonna
unlimited.
live more than 100 years. So that means that's it over with if you're having all these parallel lives at the same time.
You might have one life that's cut short after 2 years. You can have another life where you might have lived till you're 80. You can have anything, but they're just all happening at the same time.
So that means, and then you pass on to spirit, and then you don't come back again because you've had
The
your
other lives are already happening, you haven't had them, they're still happening. And you as an individual conscious, each of those life personalities continues to exist as this is the other thing that the evidence strongly supports. Each of those individual life personalities continues to exist in other states of consciousness.
Go on forever because they just have a lifespan.
Take this idea of time out of the equation. You have to forget there is no such thing as forever. It's all in the eternal now. You're still I completely understand it, but you're still trying to get your head around it from an idea of consecutive time and time spans. It doesn't mean anything anymore in the ultimate sense.